The war on the Eastern Front was unlike any other in history, and not just because of tanks, artillery, or sprawling battlefields. The deadliest adversary was something quieter, invisible, and lethal: the winter itself. Soldiers froze to death faster than bullets could kill. Entire units vanished overnight under relentless cold. Frostbite, hypothermia, and pneumonia were as strategic as any gunfire. What you're about to learn goes beyond simple survival tricks. It's about understanding the laws of heat and shelter that shaped the lives and deaths of men facing winters that could kill a human body in minutes. If you're passionate about history, survival, or just curious about how ordinary humans overcame extraordinary conditions, this guide will change the way you think about winter entirely. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video, share it with anyone who loves history or survival knowledge, comment with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to Warcraft Survival for more in-depth insights from history that can still save lives today. On the Eastern Front, soldiers' shelters often seemed sufficient at first glance. Dugouts carved into the frozen earth were reinforced with logs and scavenged timber, appearing as if they could shield men from the bitter wind. Yet beneath these structures lay a hidden enemy: the ground itself. Frozen earth is not just cold, it actively drains heat. The moment a soldier touched the floor or leaned against the walls, warmth was drawn from their body. The cold was insidious, patient, and relentless. A small stove or fire could warm the air momentarily, but the surrounding frozen mass absorbed that heat like a sponge. Many men woke colder than when they went to sleep, not because the fire failed, but because the shelter was unintentionally designed to steal heat. Understanding this principle is vital. Whether in a powerless modern home, a tent, or a winter camp, heat must be separated from cold surfaces, or it will always escape. When soldiers tried to counter this, their instinct was simple: more insulation. Straw, pine branches, spare clothing, and blankets were pressed into walls, crevices, and floors. At first, these makeshift solutions seemed to work. The air felt warmer, the walls fuller, but within hours the materials settled, sagged, or shifted. Gaps formed. Air moved. And moving air is, an enemy of warmth. It carries heat away from the body and the shelter. The problem was never really the thickness of the insulation. It was actually its structure. Without immobilizing the air within, heat always finds a way out. Soldiers learned the hard truth: loose layers, no matter how abundant, create a false sense of security. Survival demanded insulation that refused to move, something dense, unmoving, and able to trap warmth where it belonged. This realization led to one of the most remarkable rediscoveries of survival technology in history. Soldiers had wool blankets, torn uniforms, saddle pads, and sacks. Desperation, really, forced them to innovate. Wet fibres were trampled, rolled, and pressed under logs and timbers. The freezing nights themselves aided the process, solidifying the fibres. Come morning, when the ice melted, the fibres had fused into dense, stiff panels, effectively creating felt. This was no ordinary wool. It did not generate warmth. Instead, it preserved it by immobilizing air pockets that would have otherwise allowed heat to escape. For the first time, soldiers could feel warmth lasting throughout the night, despite freezing conditions outside. This ancient technique, used by nomads for centuries, had returned in the most brutal crucible imaginable. The power of this technology, lies in density over loft. Modern survival often equates softness, thickness, or even fluffiness with warmth, but the soldiers learned otherwise. Lofty, airy materials allow micro-air currents to form. These tiny, invisible storms that, drain heat faster than the cold outside. Dense, immovable insulation, on the other hand, traps air in place. It stops conduction, convection, and even reduces radiation. Felting was effective because it immobilized millions of microscopic pockets of air. And when combined with a layered system, a cold outer wall, dense felt, a narrow air gap, and an inner protective skin, the results were honestly transformative. Temperature stabilized, warmth lingered, and shelters that should have been death traps became survivable havens. Moisture remained a constant threat. Condensation formed when warm air hit cold surfaces, wetting insulation and rendering it useless. Wet fibers conduct heat, becoming highways for warmth to escape. Soldiers learned that the moisture barrier must always be on the warm side. This simple but critical insight, kept insulation dry and air pockets intact. The principle is timeless. Dry, dense, sealed layers preserve heat. Wet, loose or uncontrolled materials guarantee failure, whether in a dugout, a basement or, a modern home during a power outage. The lesson of the Eastern Front, honestly, extends far beyond wool or blankets. Any material, properly compressed and dried, can serve as insulation. Leaves, grass, old clothing, even scraps of trash, if structured correctly, behave like dense felt. Understanding how heat behaves, how it moves, escapes and can be trapped, is more valuable than any modern survival gadget. This knowledge faded in post-war decades as convenience replaced necessity. Central heating, insulated homes and ready-made materials removed the need to think about how warmth works. But when the grid fails or storms hit, the old truths remain. Survival is about preserving heat, controlling density, and managing moisture. It's really all about designing shelter that respects the laws of physics, rather than just assuming technology will somehow compensate for our mistakes. The soldiers of the Eastern Front, they survived not because they had the best gear, but because they truly understood heat. These days, those lessons can honestly save anyone from freezing nights, powerless homes, or even makeshift shelters. Dense, dry, sealed layers, thoughtfully arranged, are really the difference between enduring winter and, succumbing to it. If this guide has helped you rethink survival and the lessons of history, do consider subscribing to Warcraft Survival, sharing it with friends who love history and practical knowledge, and commenting below with your own experiences or insights. The knowledge that saved men on the Eastern Front is still alive today, and it's just waiting for those willing to understand it.